You know, Rich, marketers today, they're always manipulating labels and trying to confuse the consumer and trying to distinguish between high fructose corn syrup and all natural sugars. And are all sugars created equal? I mean, how do you explain those questions?
To a certain extent, all sugars are created equal. The way they're processed in the body is pretty much the same. There are a few exceptions. One of the exceptions is the sugar that we use in Hydrate and Recover is fructose, which is a fruit sugar. Has a very low glycemic index, which means it doesn't cause an insulin response. It doesn't cause that sudden change in blood glucose levels. But again, it follows into the same pathways as natural sugars, sucrose, table sugar does, or corn syrup, or any of the other sugars that are out there as sweeteners for products. So the benefit of fructose over those is that it doesn't cause the insulin spike. The fact of the matter is, though, sugar is sugar. It's going to be processed by the body through the same pathways. Mm-hmm. Complex carbohydrates a little bit differently. We use a glucose polymer called maltodextrin, which is a little bit slower to release into the bloodstream so that you have a more sustained energy level from it.
One thing, Rich, that people like about Wilderness Athlete is that we are science-based and we want to educate our customers. They deserve that. And so we put together a chart called Dare to Compare. I want you to address what I call gas station Kool-Aid. These sports drinks like Gatorade, Squincher, Powerade, and what we put in our product that really differentiates itself and why it's so good for human physiology. If you would address that, I'd appreciate it.
First and foremost, the nutritional profile, the ingredient profile that we utilize in Hydrate and Recover is as natural as we can possibly make it. So we use natural colors, we use natural flavors. We know that from the science that artificial flavors, artificial colors in particular, can be particularly problematic health-wise. So there's no reason why not to use natural other than it costs a little bit more, but it certainly is a lot healthier. When you look at a product, most of those products that you've mentioned, they're artificially colored. What do we know about artificial colors? At one point, the FDA had approved about 80 different artificial colors. Because of the health implications and problems with those artificial colors, they've now whittled those down to saying, well, 7 of those are safe. How many of those will get whittled down in the future? It's hard to say, but going from 80 to 7 is a pretty substantial decrease in the number of safe products, quote unquote safe. So artificial colors, we know that they can cause DNA damage. We know that they have, in animal studies, caused bladder tumors. There are reactions that are similar to food allergies. Why utilize that when you can use a natural color from seeds or fruits or vegetables? Mm-hmm.
When you think about sports drinks, Rich, you think about electrolytes and you think about sodium and potassium, and I know I've consistently seen almost the same ratios time after time everywhere I look, which is about 4 to 1 sodium to potassium. And we really have kind of reversed that, or at least we put in more potassium than sodium. Explain that and why you formulated like that.
Physiologically, the body requires more potassium than it does sodium. And in our food chain, we tend to get a whole lot more sodium than we do potassium because sodium is in everything as a flavor enhancer, obviously salt. Potassium, our best source of it is fruits and vegetables, and those tend to be dietary food items that are neglected. So we don't probably get enough potassium. But when it comes to replenishing those electrolytes, which are important not only to keep the proper pH of the cell and in the muscle, to keep the proper fluid levels, you have to have the correct ratio. And the correct ratio is not that 4 to 1 of sodium to potassium. it should favor potassium. It should be approximately 1-to-1, but be a little bit higher on the potassium side.
What is the purpose of that excess potassium? What would physiologically, what would be the response to the human body with more potassium?
The rehydration process will be much more efficient. The tendency for cramping of muscle will be reduced significantly. The fact of the matter is that potassium doesn't taste as good as sodium, and consequently, I think a lot of manufacturers tend to favor sodium over potassium just for the taste aspect of their product. But the importance of potassium is that it helps to maintain the correct pH in cells, particularly in muscle cells, and it helps to maintain the proper fluid volume in cells. And you also have this great regulation that occurs of nutrients going into cells, waste products coming out, that are regulated by the sodium-potassium balance.
Rich, the next point on our Dare to Compare chart is energy pathway support. Take a second and explain that.
There are 3 major energy pathways in the body. That is, how do we convert food into energy so that we can move? When we support those processes, those 3 pathways, with nutrients, we get a much more efficient production of energy. And that is the energy pathway support that is offered by Hydrate and Recover. The particular nutrients that are necessary to make that process go from the breakdown products of food turned into energy. Now, if you want a technical explanation of going into glycolysis through the Krebs cycle or the tricarboxylic acid cycle, and then followed by electron transport or oxidative phosphorylation, that gives you an idea of what is supported in the cell, mitochondria, by Hydrate and Recover's energy pathway support.
And what specific nutrients do we include that affect that?
Thiamine, magnesium, coenzyme Q10, and glutathione. All important either factors or cofactors in the metabolic pathway that produces energy.
If there's any buzzwords out there that I hear consistently today, Rich, it's free radicals, free radical damage, antioxidants, and the role that they play. People are getting fairly comfortable and familiar with those words and the fact that free radicals cause so much damage and wreak havoc to the human body. When you look at our formulation and we have 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C in every serving, I want you to speak to what that means to all of us in terms of the benefits that provides.
The importance of vitamin C is that it is able to mop up a lot of these free radicals that are produced in the body. Free radicals that cause inflammation, that cause muscle soreness, that cause fatigue, and really are an underlying factor for a lot of chronic disease states. So it's very important to get rid of free radicals and make sure that they're not adversely affecting us physiologically. And as I said, the more we exercise, the more we're out being physically active, using our bodies, we're making a lot more free radicals. So the importance of addressing those free radicals with antioxidants becomes much, much higher. Another very important aspect of vitamin C physiology is that it makes strong collagen in the body. And collagen is the cementing material of the body. It is the structural material that holds us all together. Everything from bones to teeth to skin to muscle to our organs requires collagen. And the stronger that collagen is, the more integrity our body has. And the more vitamin C we have, the more cross-linking occurs in the collagen, which makes it stronger.
And then in terms of immune support, what does vitamin C and how does it impact your immune system?
Vitamin C is very important for basically getting rid of the microorganisms that invade our body by causing this reaction along with the rest of our immune system that inactivates those microorganisms. Most people, when they think of vitamin C, are thinking, oh, I'll take some because I feel like I'm getting a cold. The fact of the matter is, if you take it on a daily basis, it's like building a brick wall and putting the mortar in between each of those bricks, rather than waiting till you have a cold, which is like building a brick, and then pouring the mortar over the top of it.
Got it. So when you look at, most people would look at this formulation, and if they're not aware of it, be worried about maybe drinking 3 of our Hydrate and Recovers a day. That would be the equivalent of 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C. Is that over the top?
Definitely not over the top, and for most people, that amount of vitamin C is very healthful and would be recommended. There are certain people with kidney issues who should probably avoid higher levels of vitamin C unless their physician okays that. But that's a very small part of the population.
When I first saw your formulation that you sent me, Rich, and you wanted to incorporate 500 milligrams of amino acids, I was excited to see that. Please explain, if you would, the role that those amino acids play.
Well, we have in the product L-glutamine and glycine. And L-glutamine is one of those unique molecules that is able to cross the blood-brain barrier and function in the brain and the central nervous system as an energy compound. So basically, it helps fight fatigue in the central nervous system and in the brain. Most athletes know that they hit the wall mentally far before they ever hit the wall physically. But that mental barrier that they come up against is substantial, and it makes continuing physical activity more difficult. So by keeping the brain and the central nervous system well nourished, you keep up endurance, you keep up energy levels. Glycine is used as a buffer in cells, and it's a very important part of, again, keeping the ongoing activity very easy and very effective.
Next on our Dare to Compare chart, Rich, you'll see adaptogenic herbs. And that phrase, adaptogen, is fairly familiar to Europeans. It's not so much to Americans. If you would give us an understanding of what they are, what we use, and why they're in this product.
Well, adaptogenic herbs are botanicals that help the body adapt to stress. So when we're very active physically, we're constantly stressing our muscles and our nervous system. The 2 adaptogenic herbs that we include in Hydrate and Recover are Schizandra and Rhodiola. I have to credit our friends from Russia, Dr. Nikolai Volkov, who is the father of nutritional sports biochemistry, and his protege, Dr. Volodya Leinikov, with bringing this to my knowledge base. Schizandra is a potent adaptogen that helps the body work better, work more effectively. Not only is it antioxidant, but it also helps muscles with their endurance levels. It helps work performance, basically, of the muscle. And it's not Schizandra itself, but a number of the constituents called schizandrins in the herbal extract. Rhodiola is another herbal that is an adaptogen used widely by the Eastern Europeans and the ex-Soviet sports teams, Olympic teams, as a means of increasing work performance. Some of Dr. Volkov's studies actually showed that an athlete could get a 21% increase in endurance, which meant that they could perform longer, train longer, become stronger as a result of utilizing rhodiola. So a very powerful herbal.
And then recover for the next day.
And then recover for the next day and be ready to go at it again.
Yeah, I know when I first heard about your relationship with Dr. Volkov and Dr. Leinikov, because I remember studying Nikolai Volkov in college, and the fact that you had that relationship with him and that his science was indirectly now in our company. That was pretty exciting for me. So let's move on. The phrase osmolality has been used to describe some of these sports drinks and how they help with the body for faster gastric emptying. But elaborate on what that means, optimum osmolality for hydration.
Osmolality is the concentration of total ingredients within the water in the product. And the importance of that is going to determine how quickly that drink, once prepared, is going to get into the system. Basically, how fast it's going to empty from the stomach and get into the periphery where we need it, into the muscles. So the correct osmolality means that you can actually get a drink out into the periphery, out into the muscles, faster than just plain water.
Well, last but not least, Rich, the fact that we use 400 milligrams of branched chain amino acids. I know in the bodybuilding world, in the strength world, BCAAs have been around and they're very, very highly thought of. But when you brought up the fact that we could incorporate those into our Hydrate and Recover, and that would be able to get up into the system and cause muscle repair, I'll let you speak to that, but I just want you to know that was really a highlight for me when you decided to incorporate that into this formulation. Speak to that if you would.
I think a real important aspect of Wilderness Athlete's entire product line is muscle management. And when you talk about muscle management, perhaps three of the most important compounds that are out there are L-leucine, L-valine, and L-isoleucine, the branched chain amino acids. These are compounds that are required for muscle energetics, for the muscle to produce energy. If the muscle runs out of it, doesn't have enough of those compounds, then the muscle starts eating itself, called catabolism. Basically, it breaks down muscle because it needs those amino acids. So what we've done is to supply it in Hydrate and Recover so that we circumvent that breakdown of muscle tissue, and we help to support the muscle energetics at the same time, the production of energy in the muscle cell. So we're building muscle, we're supporting muscle, we're preventing the breakdown of muscle by the inclusion of the branched chain amino acids. Now, if you're a bodybuilder, you're going to look at this and say, well, that's not a whole lot of BCAAs in there. But the fact of the matter is, we're not trying to build giant muscles with this product. What we're trying to do is to sustain the energy level and prevent the breakdown of muscle tissues so that we have an ongoing, sustained endurance for the user.
You know, Rich, I get an awful lot of testimonials from people that call me who have gone on hard backpack trips, you know, carrying a heavy load, and they're always amazed at how much quicker they recover. Would that be because the BCAAs help in tissue repair and muscle repair?
Absolutely. Very important components in muscle. Perhaps even more important than that is that intervention of the BCAAs in preventing muscle breakdown, which then has to be repaired, and the inflammation that goes along with that, is a very important part of branched chain amino acid physiology, and it's a very important part of why an athlete does feel, or a backpacker or a hunter feels like the next day, no problem, no soreness, a lot more vitality.
And the other thing I would, as we wrap this up, hydration is very much tied to, or people perceive it to have a major effect on cramping. And yet I've seen an awful lot of people take sports drinks that it doesn't help them at all. And they've taken ours and have had unbelievable success. And again, it's reflected in the testimonials we get that you guys have saved me from cramps that I used to have, especially after being out all day and then laying down on a cot or on the ground in a sleeping bag. How does that all work together to really minimize the cramping effect?
A Coach, that's really a great question because it is a summation of what this formula, the Hydrate and Recover formula, is all about. It is the sum total of all of the ingredients, of all of what has been built into the formulation that makes that possible. It's the electrolytes, it's the branched chain amino acids, it's the buffering effect of having the proper ratio of sodium and potassium. All of those, it's having the adaptogenic herbs. Those all come together to make it possible for this formula to work exactly that way.